Okay. Hello to everyone who may or may not be watching this. There is no one as of right now, but I'm hoping that some people will join later, or maybe people may or may not watch this later at some point. But anyway, this stream is or this pre-recorded thing, whatever, if you're watching this now or later, whatever, this thing is going to be a time where I will teach people how to make swans, because that is something that was done. This is done at the request of one of my professors who wanted us to make swans. So this is an example, right? And then this is another example. We'll be making I'll be teaching 5 different swans today in a variety of difficulties. So if something is too difficult for you, then you can just go back to some of the earlier ones. I'm going to try and start us off with the easier ones, and then as we progress further, we'll be getting into some of the more difficult ones. But let's just go ahead and get started with the simplest swan, which can actually be done with a napkin, as you can see right here. Right, and there's some paper that I'll be getting to later, but you can see that this napkin right here, it's about a square. It doesn't have to be perfectly a square, but the important thing about this napkin is that it's a fold. It comes pre-folded up, right? So it would be full. So if you don't have that, just get a large-ish and relatively thin napkin, and you're just going to fold it in half and then fold it in half again, and that is from which we shall begin making our simple swan. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to find the end with the 4 flaps of the napkin, like so, and you're going to be going to the point that's directly across, diagonally across from that. This should be the thickest, or one of the thickest points of the napkin, and what you're going to do is fold along that diagonal between those 2 points. So it'll be something like this, and you're going to unfold it, and it should be a relatively light crease, light enough that you can see it, but it shouldn't be too deep, because after all, this is a napkin. If you serve this on a plate, people are going to unfold it, and then they're going to do napkin stuff with it, right? So then what you're going to do is take each of the edges like this, and the edges that are coming from these 2 corners, the top and bottom corners, towards the thick point of the napkin, or away from the 4 flaps. And what you're going to do is fold those edges to the center, lightly enough that they hold their place, but they don't have to be the sharpest creases in the world. In fact, none of them have to be. And you'll notice that my napkin isn't perfectly square, and that's perfectly fine for this application. You're going to do it again. So take these edges right here and fold them into the center. Then what you're going to do is you're going to fold the entire thing in half along the crease that you made, and you'll notice that at the thinner end, it will kind of want to pop up a little bit. That's okay. Just try and flatten it as best you can, and you'll end up with this really thin-like structure. All right, and then what you're going to do is take this point and slightly spread open the bottom, and you're going to push down with your thumb here like this. Push down and grab another finger and push this point up like so. Then if you look at it from the front, we're going to bring these 2 parts back together, right? And then it'll be something like this. Then what you're going to do is adjust the napkin a little bit so that it'll look something like this. Turn it to the front or to the side, and then flatten at that area, and then flatten the whole thing. And it should look something like that. Again, from this form, we're going to open it up slightly at the bottom, grab a thumb like this, finger and push like this, and then you're going to flatten at this part. You're going to do the same thing up here at the head, or at the tip, to form the head. And so from this view, we're going to open it up slightly, and we're going to take a finger here and another finger here and push down, and then look at it from the side and flatten this portion right here, and that, and then you're going to flatten the beak again, and that is going to be the head. And you'll notice it'll try and come apart like that. That's okay. You can adjust the proportions of the swan at this point to sort of fit better. So you'll notice that looks something like a swan, but then what about the rest of it, right? It's a very simple swan. Well, you'll notice that at the back here, there are these 4 flaps still, and this is where you can get expressive with them, and you can start to separate these into the tail feathers. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just pulling apart the different layers of the swan's tail, and you'll have something like this. And then it stands up, so you can put it on a plate, and then you can serve it to dinner guests or something. I don't know if they would find something like this appealing. You can, of course, use pre-served napkins, but anyway, that's a simple form of a swan that you can make using a napkin, right? We're going to set that aside for now. And we are going to turn to a swan that you can find in... I'm going to show the book on camera so that you can tell exactly where I get my instructions. We're going to take a swan from this book right here, Origami Zoo by Robert Lang and Stephen Weiss. And like the rest of the origami things we're going to be doing this session, it starts with a square. And what you're going to do with the square is, ideally you want... I am a bit short on paper today, so I am saving the ones that are white on both sides to... I'm saving the ones that are white on both sides for the later models, right? So, and if you forgot how to make a square, I'm going to show that again. Just take this paper right here and fold one of the shorter edges down to the longer edges. Flip it over, fold this flap over so that the fold meets the edge on the back. And then you can cut or tear this off. I'm going to cut it off because I have scissors nearby for the first time in like forever. And you're just going to cut along this crease right here. So that is how you make a square. Now I'm going to go back to this smaller square and proceed with this swan, right? So the first thing you're going to do is I'm going to start with the white side up. What you're going to do is you're going to crease the diagonal along like this. Crease one of the diagonals and then unfold it. So it'll look something like this. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to take these and you're going to take this edge right here and this edge as well. You're going to take those and then you're going to fold those edges down to the center line. Kind of like what we did in the previous model with the napkin. It really doesn't matter which edges you fold to the center, because in the end you are going to end up with a kite shape like this, or if you kind of look at it, an ice cream cone with a sharp tip, maybe a snow cone, whatever you call it, right? But you're going to orient your model like this. Then what you are going to do is you're going to orient your model like this, unfold the kite, and then what you're going to do is you're going to make a fold from this point right here where this and the corner that you fold should line up with the center diagonal. And so your model should look something like this. And then you're going to fold them back, fold the edges back into the center along the creases that you just folded. So from this, along these creases here, back to this. Then what you're going to do is you are going to fold these corners here out so that the fold lines up with the edge of the paper right here, or in this case, with the colored side of the paper. So it'll be from this point here to this point here that you're folding. And once you're done, it should look something like this. And then you're going to do the same thing on the top, or on the other side, rather. So it'll be from this point here to this point here. Now, once you've done that, you're going to take this flap right here and unfold it. And then you're going to fold the entire thing in half. So it'll look something like this. Now what you're going to do is you are going to take this corner right here, this corner, and fold it so that and fold this, so this edge right here should line up with this edge right here. And I know it's not exactly the best with this patterned paper, but you can kind of see this edge right here and this edge. You're going to take this edge and fold it up to that edge like so. So it will look something like this. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. So again, this edge right here will be folded up to this edge. So you'll have something like this. Then what you're going to do, this is a semi-complicated maneuver. What you're going to do is you are going to take this edge right here and partially crease it. So fold it up, and fold this edge up to this edge and partially crease it. You don't want to go the whole way with this. So right up to about that point right there, you can kind of see where there's a line right there, a folded edge. You kind of want to go up to that point. And then you're going to take this edge right here on the long side and do the same thing. You're going to fold it up to the top edge. And this time you're going to go beyond the white section. You're going to go here up to where you meet the crease that you made just before from folding this edge, right? So it's going to be from this point up to around here, this area. And you can kind of see that is where the 2 points intersect. Then what you're going to do is from the place where those 2 folds intersect, you're going to make a crease from that point downwards. But but we're not going to do that right now. What we're going to do is fold this edge up first and fold this edge at the same time. And you'll notice the paper kind of wants to make the fold that I just described, where you fold from the intersection of the 2 edges to this point right here. And then, so you'll make that fold, and then you'll flatten the model like so. It should look something like this. Now what you're going to do is the exact same thing on the other side. So we're going to take this edge here and fold it up to this top edge right here. And we're not going to go the whole way. And then you're going to take this edge right here and fold it up to the top as well. And you're going to go up until about where it meets the other fold that you've just made. So it should look something like this. And then you're going to fold them both up at the same time. And then the paper will kind of want to make the fold if you encourage it a little bit like this. So you'll make a fold from this point right here to this point. And once you're done, the model will look something like this. Now, in case you noticed already, the reason why you want to use a paper with white on both sides is that the body is going to be white, but the neck and head are going to be colored. All right, and it will look like a generally awkward combination of colors. So use some printer paper or something. Don't do what I'm doing, right? What you're going to do next is you're going to look at it from this point of view. So you're going to look at it from the thin end, and you're going to open the model slightly. And what you're going to do is put a finger right here and then another one up here, and you're going to push up the flap like so. And then once it stands up, you're going to close the back and then flatten it here at the front, kind of like what we did for the napkin swan. And you'll notice that this model I've folded right now, the neck is kind of leaning forward. And if you don't want that, it's really simple to fix. All you have to do is push this flap back and then reflatten the bottom portion like this. Now what we're going to do is we are going to shape the tail. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this flap right here. From here, we're going to open up the bottom, and then we're going to fold this flap. We're going to fold this flap all the way up to this point right here. So we don't want it going beyond that. So it'll look something like this. And then we're going to fold the tip back. And there are no proportions, seems right. And then you'll reflatten it, and the model will look something like this. Right? Kind of open up the model like so. And you'll notice that at this point right here, there's a little flap of paper. And what we're going to do is carefully, we're going to open it up slightly and take out that flap of paper, reflatten the model like this so that the flap of paper is outside, and then flatten the model. I'll do it again so that in case you didn't follow, what we're going to do is open up the model like so. We're going to open up this flap right here. And then basically the way you're going to flatten it is by making a crease from this point right here. And it's from a point where two different creases intersect all the way up to this point right here. And then you'll just flatten the model like so. All right, and then from there, that's the tail just about finished. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the head, open it up from the back, and then what you're going to do is, looking at it from the back, you're going to put a thumb here, and you're going to put a finger right behind it, and then move it downwards like so. And then you're going to flatten the whole thing, the neck again, from this point right here, and it should look something like this. And you may find that the proportions of this head are a bit like weird, but we're going to fix that right now. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at it from this angle right here, and you'll notice that there is a flap that you can pull out, and we're going to do just that. And you may have to tug a little bit on this flap right here in order to get it out. But basically, we're just going to pull it out and then flatten the head again so that it looks something like this. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So take this flap right here and pull carefully this bit of paper out, flatten the model, and you'll get something that looks kind of like this. Now that looks more like a swan head, you say. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the head and we're going to form the beak. We're going to fold the flap inwards, like so, once we have the head open, and then we're going to fold the flap outwards. There's no proportions on this, but once you flatten the head again, it will look something like this. And you can adjust the beak to your preference just by moving it up or down and then flattening, right? I'm going to leave it like that. Then the last thing we are going to do is we're going to fold along this line right here. It's kind of hard to see, but there is no proportion to this really. You're just going to fold a bit of paper behind like so in order to make the neck a bit thinner. And you'll notice that the paper on this side will want to come up. Let it do so, and then you're going to flatten on the bottom right there. So it will look something like this with a bit of a thinner neck. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. You're going to fold inward, try and match the fold that you did on the other side. Fold inward like this, and you'll notice the paper here will want to come up, and you'll just let it and then flatten it and try and match it on the other side. So that is the swan, and there's one last thing you can do, which is you're going to open up the neck like this, and you're going to kind of fold the head down and then back up, or you're going to pinch it back up like this and then refold so that you get something like this. That's called a crimp fold. And again, what you're going to do is fold the head down and pinch it so that it will fold back up, and then flatten it again so that it looks something like this. And you'll notice my swan is a bit awkwardly colored. That's because I did not take my own advice and use paper that was the same color on both sides or white on both sides. So you should not do what I did, and you should use paper that's the same color on both sides. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to turn to a swan from this book. In fact, it's Origami from Around the World by Vincente Palacios. I hope I pronounced that name right. You'll notice the swan is right on the cover. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the colored side up, and we are going to fold both of the diagonals. So like this, unfold, and then rotate it 90 degrees and fold the other diagonal like this. All right, and you can go over these creases again to make them a bit sharper if you'd like. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make that same kite figure that we made in the previous two swans. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to take this edge right here and this edge right here and fold them to the center line, like this. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take these edges that are at the center and fold them out to these edges that are on the outside, like this. You're going to do that on both sides. So it'll look something like this. Now what you're going to do is take those flaps, unfold them so you're back at the beginning, rotate the paper 180 degrees so that the folds you made are pointing away from you, like this, or in my case they are pointing towards you, but that's not really but it doesn't really matter. But you're going to do the same thing on this side of it. So you'll notice how these flaps are now oriented like this. You're going to fold these edges here down to the center line. And then you're going to take these flaps and fold them outward. So you have something that looks like this, and then unfold. Now I'm going to turn it over so you can better see the creases, all right? And what we're going to do next is we're going to collapse the paper on these creases. So if we turn it back over to this side, we're going to fold in on these edges right here along the top, and then fold out along the edge, along the folds that we also made. So it'll be like this on this side and like this on this side. But then you ask, what about this thing at the center? What are we going to do with that? You're going to basically open it up, push it out, and then keep collapsing so that you end up with something like this. And I will repeat the procedure on the other side if you could not follow. So you're going to fold in on the two folds down here, the folds that are closer to the center line. So it'll look something like this. You're going to fold up on the two folds that you see that are bisecting this part right here. So it'll be like this. And then you're going to open this up, push it out, and then keep folding along these lines here, or along these lines rather, until you reach the center line, at which point you'll notice it kind of just falls into shape, at which point you're just going to flatten it like so. Now what you're going to do is you're going to turn the paper over like this and fold this flap down so that the model looks something like this. Now what you're going to do is you're going to fold this flap up. And there are no proportions to this, but just fold up, I'd say, a satisfying amount. But what's important is that this tip goes beyond these ones. So it'll look something like this. Next, you're going to take this tip and fold it downwards. So it will look something like this, and you can't really see it, but you want to fold slightly past this top edge right here. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to make folds from this point right here up to this point. So you can kind of see where there's a fold right there. It's you'll notice this part of this edge is thicker and this part is thinner. You want to fold from this point down here up to where the thin and the thick edge meet. So it'll look something like this. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. And it's going to end up like this. So what you're going to do now, it's a kind of complicated procedure, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to fold it in half, and you're going to then pull this flap out, but then you want to open up the flap and fold this part, and basically what we're trying to do is fold this half of the flap inside, and we're going to almost push it inside. So open it up from the bottom, and then you're going to fold it along these edges that you can see here. You're going to fold it along these like so. Wish you luck on your finals, and we're going to then close it up like so. So it'll look something like this. All right. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take this, and we're going to open it up from here. And you'll notice I have my finger here, and my thumb is directly behind it. You're going to push it out like this, so that and then flatten it, and then we're going to flatten it up here, so that you end up with something like this. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this part, the thin part, and push it in. And basically you're going to make folds from this point right here where the white part and the colored part meet, and up until it meets the wing. So that's the fold that it's going to push on right there. And then you're going to do that on the other side like that. And then once you have that, you're going to take this and push it up. You are going to take these, open this up right here, and take these flaps and simply fold them into the center. So it will look something like this. And you're going to fold it the whole way. I didn't fold it the whole way just because I was trying to show you guys, but you're going to do that on the other side as well. So right here. So it will look something like this once you are done. We are going to then open it up again and take this flap and fold it any amount that you wish. But you want to leave a little bit out here. This will become the feet, and you'll notice that if I close it up, a little bit goes beyond, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine as well. But you can adjust it to your taste. So I'm going to pull it back a little bit so that it looks something like this. And you'll notice at this point, the model stands. But we are not done yet. We still have a few things to do. What we're going to do now is we're going to take the thin flap up here. This is the neck, as you might be able to tell already. You'll notice it separates into 3 at the front. You're going to kind of pull it apart. Take the 2 on the outside and pull it apart, and push on the top Then you're going to reflatten the model so that it looks something like this. And finally, you're going to just open up the head, fold the flap in, and then fold it out to make the beak, and then you will refold it back in half, and that is the beak. One last thing to do, and you'll notice this part here is a very thick part of the model. So what we're going to do is approach it from the back and push down on this so that the fold goes from this top point right here down to these points here. And that should become the made in this stream. All right, so now we are going to go on to some harder ones. And the next one we're going to make comes from this book, The Works of Satoshi Kamiya. And you might be very intimidated by this dragon on the front. It's a very intimidating model, but the swan that we're making isn't nearly as hard. It is this thing right here. It's a swan on a lake. So this is when you should use the paper that is white on one side and blue on the other. But if you don't have that, you can simply add paint later. For this, I'm going to use a larger sheet of paper because this is a slightly more complicated model. So what we're going to do is you might have noticed there's already diagonal here. Well, we're not going to use that, so we can basically ignore it for this model. And it is going to bite me in the butt later, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem. It'll just affect how the final thing looks, but I'm not too concerned about that. We're going to fold the paper in half vertically, like so. We're going to open this up, open it back up, and then what we're going to do is take these corners right here, and you might notice that on my paper the center is marked, but if your paper is not marked in the center due to the intersection of two halfway creases, you're just going to fold this edge down to the center line, and the corners will come to the center. The same on the bottom. Now you're going to turn it over to this side. This side would normally be the colored side, but in my case it is all white, so it doesn't really matter. What we're going to do is we're going to unfold those 2 points in the back. You could have done that before you turned it over, but it doesn't really matter. But anyway, this fold right here is going to be folded to the center line. So what you're going to do is sort of pinch like this and bring that fold to the center line and crease it all the way through. If you don't want to, if you don't want to crease through this paper, you can simply fold it to the side as you finish the crease and then fold it back like this. You're going to do the same thing on this side. So you're going to pinch this fold, bring it into the center, and finish the crease like so, and fold it back. Now what we're going to do is we're going to crimp to make a little bit of adjustment down on this part of the model. So we're going to take this corner right here and bring it into the center like so. And again, if we're going to take this corner and bring it into the center like this, and you're going to hold that corner in the center like so. And then what we're going to do is crease the model like this up until where it meets this crease right here. So it's going to look something like this. Then from the point where those two creases intersect, you may notice that the paper kind of wants to make a fold from there to there. So if you encourage it a little bit, you can make a fold from the point where these two creases intersect up to this point right here. You can fold like that and then flatten. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to take this corner here, fold it over to this side, to the center, and hold it there. And fold this fold here up until we reach this crease right here, this crease, and from the point where those two creases intersect, it'll kind of point and then flatten. It will look something like this. Next, what we're going to do is take this edge right here and fold it to the center line like this. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So it'll be from this bottom edge to the center, and then fold like that. Then you're going to unfold both of those. What we're going to do now is open up the model like this, and we're going to push in on this edge. And you'll notice the model will kind of fall on the creases that you just made on this side and this side. We're going to fold along those creases like this and then flatten. So it will look something like this. Again, push the model in, and you'll notice it'll fall along the creases that you've just made. So fold along those creases and flatten, like so. Now, we're going to turn the whole thing over so that it looks like this. You're going to take this flap and fold it up just the single layer as far as it will go, which should be between these 2 points right here. And then unfold that, and you don't want to undo what I just did and undo what you did in the previous steps, but if you do, just push it back in, it's fine. Then you're going to take this entire layer and this entire complex of flaps and fold that up as far as it will go, which will be between this point here and this point here and this point here. And that's how you'll fold it. Unfold that. Then what we're going to do is take these sides and fold them into the middle. So this edge will go to the middle, and the lines that you've just made should help you with that crease. So this point right here will go to this point in the middle, and this point will go to this point in the middle. If you don't get it right on the first time, just adjust, it's fine. And it will look something like this. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. So this point is going to go to this point in the middle, and this point is going to go to this point in the middle. Unfold those, and what we're going to do next is a relatively complicated procedure, but if you just follow me and take your time, you should be okay with it. Excuse me. So what we're going to do is open up the model, like so. Your other hand's going to go under here, and you're going to open it up like this. Open up this flap too. And you'll notice that along the crease you just made, there's this sort of trapezoid-like shape that runs along these creases right here. Basically, what we're trying to do is push that area downwards. And in order to do that, we need to change all of the creases that make up the trapezoid from valley folds into mountain folds. So we're going to reverse a bunch of the creases, or reinforce the ones that already exist. So along this bottom edge, we're going to fold along the existing crease like this, and along this edge, the side, we're going to fold along the existing crease like this. And along this top, you don't really need to do that because that's already in the proper orientation, but you can fold it to make it sharper. And then along this side, the side that's closest to the center of the model, you're going to fold along the existing crease like this. And now you'll notice that the model that this area is kind of sinking inwards, and that's exactly what we want to happen. We're going to flatten the model so that this area is sunk inside. So, and in order to do that, we're going to start from the bottom, and we're going to slowly bring the sides together to the center. And as you do that, you'll notice that this area here is starting to sink down along creases that you've already made. You're going to keep going, and if you make an error, just stop and adjust and keep going. And then once you get to this point, you'll notice that it will also want to sink in. Just keep going. And once you've done it like that, that's what it should look like. And on this side, that is what it should look like as well. We're going to do the same thing on this side with this flap right here. We're going to sink it inside so that it doesn't show up. And so I'm going to go through the procedure again. We're going to open up the model like this, and we're going to reinforce creases along this bottom edge, along existing creases, along this side, along the existing creases, and along the top, and along the side that is closest to the center, which is right here. Sort of lost my orientation there for a second. Then you're going to start from the bottom and slowly push the center down and start to flatten the model like this. We're going to keep going up. If you make a mistake, just stop and fix the mistake and then keep going. And then keep pushing up. You'll notice this one's falling into place too. And there, and that's that. Just flatten all of the creases once again, and then bring it back to this form right here, and this side of the paper. All right, so that's one of the hard steps out of the way. Now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on this area specifically. So from this bottom point up to this point right here, where the first horizontal line is, you can kind of see this horizontal line here. We're going to fold from this point to this point up here. It will look something like this, and the line and the fold will not come to the center edge. That's something not happen, right? And then you're going to do the same fold on the other side from this bottom edge to this fold right here, this point. In the air so I can give a close-up, but you should definitely not do that, and you should try and fold your things on a surface unless you're doing detailed things in which you need to see. Anyway, what we're going to do now is we are going to basically pinch this together and fold it to one side. And in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to fold from this point up to this point, and from this point up to this point. So just take fold from there up to here where the second horizontal line is. And then do the same thing on the other side. And it should look like that. Now, pinch the whole thing together, and we're going to push it to this side, like this. And now what we're going to do is take this flap here and fold it to the other side. What you have should look something like this now. Now what we're going to do is take this flap right here and fold it so that this edge meets this line right here, which won't be exactly along the center of the model, but it's going to be the center of the swan, at least part of the swan that you can see. So from this edge up to this center, up to this line right here, and unfold. Then you're going to open up that part of the model and then push in using this finger along those creases. So it will look something like this. All right. Now, what you're going to do is fold this flap back. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this point and fold it up to this point right here. You're going to have to crease through a lot of layers to do that, but just try your best and make a fold like that, and you can kind of see it right there. Then you're going to flip the paper over. What we're going to do now is we're going to part this part, the upper part of the model, like so, kind of like Moses parting the Red Sea, except different, right? Then we're going to fold this. We're going to push the back in like so. And then once we've pushed it as far as we can go, as far as it can comfortably go, that is, we're going to take these flaps on the side and fold them down like so. Now, you may have noticed this is the beginning. This is kind of beginning to look like what you saw in the picture that I showed you previously. So this is the lake, and then this right here is the swan. Okay, now what we're going to do is fold the swan over to one side, like so. And then we're going to fold the wing over so it looks like this. Now what you're going to do is I'm going to be bad again and not fold this on a surface in order to get a close-up. You're going to fold this edge into this line, to this edge right here, but the first layer only. So this layer only, like this. And it is a bit of a hard crease, especially down here, but I'm just going to crease that and then unfold it. Then open up this part of the model right here, and you're going to push this in along the crease that you've made. And then you'll kind of notice if you push far enough, it will want to make a fold from here to this point right here. You're just going to let that happen and fold it back down. Now what you're going to do is you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you're going to fold to this edge right here, this edge to this edge right here. And it's a bit of a tough one because of a lot of layers, but just do your best. Open it up like so and push it in along the creases. You'll notice that there's a fold that naturally wants to be made. So it'll look something like this. Right, now what you're going to do is we're going to open it up from this end, and we're going to fold it up, fold the point like this. It's not as far as it'll go, but you're going to leave a little bit of space, and then you're going to close it back up. All right, so it will look something like this, and you can adjust the thing like so that the neck kind of goes. I have my thumb here and my index finger here. I'm going to push down so that I get a head kind of like this, and the paper kind of went ahead of me in that one right there, but so if you did it the right way without the paper trying to skip steps, it should look something like this. Now, if we try and get in closer and look at it from this end right here, you'll notice that there are some small paper flaps inside the head. We want to bring those out like so, and then reflatten the model so that the head looks something like this. It looks something like that, okay? Now what you're going to do is you're going to open up the head once again. You're going to fold the beak, the tip, inward and then outward. And then, if you have the patience and the skill to do it enough, just a bit inward again. Now you'll flatten the model. And if it turned out correctly, you should get something like a beak. Mine didn't turn out very well, so I'm going to try it again. That's a bit better. So it'll look something like this. All right. Now, that is the head just about done. And if you want to, you can adjust the position of the neck by moving and flattening, and you can adjust the position of the head as well. But I'm going to leave it like this. So Now let's focus on the wings. And I'm going to rotate the paper so that it looks kind of like this. We're going to kind of leave the head to one side. And what we're going to do is fold this edge so that it meets up with this edge through this point right here. So we're going to bisect this angle right here into what looks like this. And you'll notice at the top, these two edges here meet. So you'll have a fold that looks like this. Then from this point here at the bottom of the fold that you just made, you're going to fold that and you're going to fold from there a fold that is perpendicular to this top edge right here. So it will look something. You're going to unfold that. Then you're going to take this edge right here and fold it to the fold that you just made. You're going to, in other words, you're going to bisect this bottom angle. So it'll look something like this. And then you're going to fold from this bottom edge to the fold you just made again. We're going to bisect that angle. So it looks something like that. Now that your swan has been folded like that, what we're going to do is we're going to close it up like this. All right. What we're going to do now is open up this part of the swan right here, and then you'll notice there's a flap right here. You want to fold that inward as far as it will comfortably go without you having to rip the paper. So it should be right about there. Now what you're going to do is fold the swan over like this, right? And then what you're going to do is you'll notice that the swan is kind of like this again. You're going to open up the swan again with the unfolded wing, and you're going to do the same thing that you did on this wing. So first, we're going to bisect this angle up top here, so these two edges here meet. Fold a perpendicular from this bottom point. So it'll look something like this. Fold this edge to the fold that you just made. So it will look something like this. And then fold this edge to the fold that you just made again. So it'll look something like this. And you can go ahead and fold and refold all of the things if you want to make them a bit sharper. That's what I'm going to do personally. All right, and now what we're going to do is we're going to, from this position right here, with the newly folded wing to the side, you're going to fold it back up like this. And we're going to do the same thing that we did with the previous one. Right under this flap right here, you're going to take this flap and fold it back as far as it will go without you having to rip the paper. And then push it back in, so it'll look something like this. All right, now with the swan kind of up top right here, we're going to open up the wings, and from here, the wings, you can kind of just decorate them how you wish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the flaps together and kind of make little pleats in the wings, but not pleats that fully span the length of the wings. So it's kind of like that. And then like this, and then like this, so that you have little pleats in the wings to kind of give it some roundish shape. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side. So like this, and this, and like this. I know my fingers are kind of in the way, but we're just going to push things together and make pleats, but they're not complete, so that you can give the wings a sort of rounded effect. Now, now our swan is almost done, but one last thing we have to do is lift up this flap right here, and we're going to just fold this in so as to hide it from the rest of the model. And if we fold it back, you can kind of see it's not visible anymore, except for a little bit, but you can adjust if that still bothers you. We're going to do the same thing on this side, and you'll notice the folds go from this point right here to this point right here, where you see this 90-degree angle. That's where the folds go. And sometimes they don't fit like that, but you can continually adjust so that it's hidden from view like this. All right, and then that is the swan that's swimming in the lake, right? The last swan that is part of today's stream is in this book, The Beauty of Origami by Makoto Yamaguchi. And if we find the swan in here, it's on one of these pages. This is what the swan looks like. So it's a more 3D model. And for this, I'm going to take another sheet of white paper and I'm just going to fold it and like so to make a square. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by folding one of the diagonals and unfolding, which I already did in the making of the square. So we're going to rotate it 90 degrees and fold the other diagonal. But this time, we're not going to unfold it. We're going to leave it like this. Then what we're going to do is fold these tips right here at the side down here so that the folds will meet at this middle point right here. It will look something like this, and then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. And it'll look something like this, right? Now you will unfold both of those pieces, and what we're going to do does involve a bit of complicated measurements, but it's simple enough to approximate and adjust on some of them. Basically, we want to go 1/4, and we want to make a fold that goes from 1/4 of this length to 1/3 of this length. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to first mark 1/4 on this side because that is easiest to do. So we're going to take this tip and fold it to the fold here that you just made. And then just fold the bottom part of it. We don't want to fold the whole way. And then do the same thing with this point going to this mark that you've made so that it looks something like this. And again, just pinch the bottom. Now what you're going to do is you can measure this distance and then physically do some math to like figure out what 1/3 of this length is, but do you really want to do that when you can just approximate and adjust? You can just approximate and adjust by bending the paper this way first and then this way second. and then you'll adjust so that this point will meet this edge and this edge will meet the center line, and that's how you approximate 1/3 on this edge, right? And so this right here is a decent approximation. I'm just going to pinch it on both sides, and you can see that from the pinches we've made, 1/4 of this length right here is right here, and then 1/3 of this length is right here. What we want to do is fold from this point right here to this point right here. So it'll be something like that. And it'll kind of look like a tiny dog ear, right? Now you're thinking, do I have to do the same thing on the other side? No, you don't have to do the same thing on the other side. You can just fold it over like this, and then match the fold on this side. Match it so that they look equal, and then unfold. Now you'll notice this one is facing this way, and this one is facing the other way. You want to so this one we folded this, right? Now what you're going to do is you're going to unfold those, and you're going to fold these corners in so that it's perpendicular to this edge and that it goes through that point right there. So it will look something like this. And then you're going to do the same thing on this end, so perpendicular to this top edge and going through this point down here. So it will look something like this. Now you're going to refold along those complicated measurement folds so that you'll get something like this. And then you'll refold along these creases right here. And this is what you should end up with. Now, from here on out, we're going to deal with some really thick layers. So you want to kind of be careful when you're folding so as to not tear things due to things accumulating layers upon layer, right? What we're going to do now is we're going to, with this thick end up at the top and these two corners here facing towards you, they're facing away from me because that's just how I'm recording the live stream. You're going to fold these edges into the center line. And again, it's kind of thick, so take your time and make sure to not get any and make sure to not, let stuff get out of hand. So it will look kind of like this. You'll do the same thing on this side. So this edge will be folded into the center. And you'll get something that looks like this, kind of like the kites that we folded for earlier swans, but this time with the exception of the bottom looking kind of like this. You're going to unfold it, and this is kind of what you do for a crane, but different. So we're going to lift this top corner up, and we're going to fold it up along a fold that should go from this line, this point right here, to this point right here. So if we fold it up like this, we're going to push in along the creases that we made earlier, and then bring the top down and push in along the creases up there that we also just made. And you'll get something sort of like a diamond. Push it down, push the model down, flatten it in the middle, and just flatten all of the creases. And with this stuff, when it is this thick, you do want to make sure it is flat as possible before going on. You're going to turn the model over so it looks like this. Then you're going to take this thick point and fold it downward as far as it will comfortably go. You're going to then turn the model over again, so it looks like this. What you're going to do is fold these points into the middle. So you can kind of see this fold right here and this line right here. You're going to fold these points into this point right here so that the two of them meet. And this does involve really thick layers. So at the top it's kind of thin, but then at the bottom it does involve thick layers. So make sure you can put some more strength into that to flatten it. If you want to, you can even get something like a water bottle to help you push it down like that. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. This point right here, fold into the center. And be careful not to tear stuff when you do this, because sometimes the layers are so thick that you can tear them if you're not being careful enough. But again, just make sure to put some more force into creasing down at the bottom, right? So you'll have something that looks like this. Take this top point and fold it backwards along this center line, and you'll get something that looks sort of like this. Now what you're going to do is you're going to turn the thing over, and you're going to push along along this edge right here, this point, and basically it'll go. You'll make a fold from this point here down to this point, but only on the first layer. And to do that, you're going to push this layer so that you can make the fold. And you'll have to reflatten this part along the top too. It will extend from the top edge, but that's okay. That's exactly what we want. And then, if you've made any errors, you can readjust. And then you'll do the same thing on this side. So you're going to push, and if it's not going, just make sure you loosen it up a little bit, and then push inwards so that you get a fold from here down to here. And then flatten like this. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over again, and we are going to open up the model from the center. We're going to separate the layers like this, and then we're going to hold on, I'm trying to see how I would specifically say this. We're going to open it up, and you can see that I folded it along this line. You want to actually fold it along this line right here, so that it looks so that from the inside you'll get something like this. And then on this side as well. And make sure you get all of the layers, because there are a lot of layers in this, like onions. Onions have layers, right? And then you want to, once you have that, what you're going to do is you're going to fold along this line, along this right here. So it'll be, if we reference it from the outside, it will be from this point here to this point. So you'll get something like this. The model will not lie flat from this point forward. So just give up all of your hope for it lying flat. You're going to fold the model in half. And again, it won't lie flat. This part back here is still going to be 3D, and that is the point of the model. So it will look something like this. Now what you're going to do is you're going to orient the model like this with the long edge along the top. And we're going to attempt to shape the tail. So you want to flatten this thin part of the tail to the edge of the wing. So it'll look something like this. And then unfold. You're then going to open up the tail, and you're going to fold along those folds that you've just made, and then so it'll look something like this. And I'm sorry if I'm not doing a good job of describing this, but basically along the creases you've just made, you're going to make them so that you can fold something like this. Then on the other side, inside the cavity, what you're going to do is you're going to take the edge, and you may have noticed that you kind of started folding these edges when you did the thing on the other side, but you're going to fold these edges so that the fold along the other side is made, and then the edge will fold back along the center line or along the diagonal line here, like so. And I hope you can see that well. So we're going to do the same thing on this side. So fold along the crease that you've made earlier, and then fold back along the center, like so. And you may find that the wings get in the way of you doing this, but just push them out of the way as best you can. Now, what we're going to do once you have this is we're going to fold these flaps right here this way. So I'm sorry that my fingers are in the way, but you're going to fold it like this. And this will help lock the flaps in place. You'll notice that these ones are starting, and the ones on this side are starting to fall apart, but you're going to take this flap, and basically this flap is going to go up to this edge right here. So you're bisecting a tiny angle, and it will be like that. And the other side came apart, but that's okay, because now we'll just have to push this in again and flatten the model, or fold the model back in half. And that is the tail of the swan. All that is left to do is make the head and neck, or shape the head and neck. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the model from the bottom, and we're going to have my index finger right here. It's slightly below this thick point right here, and then my thumb is on the other side. You're going to push that up, fold the rest of the model back in half, and then flatten it as best you can at the bottom so that it will look something like this. And the tail that I folded is coming apart again. If it does, just repeat the folds to lock it up in place again. And you'll notice that now the model stands like this. And if the neck is a bit too forward for your liking, you can simply push it back a little more to adjust. Now what we're going to do is we're going to open up this part of the model. I have my thumb here, and my index finger is behind it. We're going to bend it forward, flatten it right around here, and then that's going to be the head. But then if you open up the flap again, you'll notice that there are some paper flaps that you can pull out, which is exactly what we are going to do. So we're going to kind of separate the things like this, which is going to go down into the neck, and then flatten it along creases that you've made earlier. So it will look something like this. And now we're going to reopen the head, fold the tip in and out to make the beak. And that is the basic, and that is the swan. But there's one last thing we're going to do, and that's fold the head back so that the swan is kind of looking at its wings. And then the swan will kind of stay like that. Now, if you want the swan to stay more like this, you can use better paper, or you can partake in an action known as wet folding, which is something that helps origami to hold its shape. I may do something where I do a wet folding later in life, but that's it for the swans. All right. So I showed you how to make 5 swans today, from a napkin swan to more 3D ones to one that was swimming, and that's it for today. I know I haven't been streaming in a while, and it was just because I had difficulties doing so, things like work and also mental health issues. But I'm going to try and stream more often nowadays, especially now that school is over. I may end up having to push stream time to a different time, just because there are upcoming things that may interfere with me being able to stream on at 3 p.m. Central on Saturdays. But other than that, thank you all. Thank you to all who joined live. If you're watching this later, thank you for watching this as well. This is once again dedicated to Mark Lewis, who suggested that I do swans, that I teach some swans. And good luck on finals. And that's all from me. Thank you for joining, and that's it. Yeah.